My motivation for working as hard as I do is my neighborhood. I've lived there most of my life. I've seen the neighborhood go through changes, sometimes for the better, and then oftentimes for the worse. My ward is in a section of town that has been neglected, I think, for a lot of years, but it also poses one of the best opportunities for the city to grow. The investments that we make in these public spaces are sometimes some of the best uses of resources we can spend. So really an investment we made in O'Fallon has gone a long way. Not just by the infrastructure repairs, but we've started doing jazz concerts in the park. We started doing activities in the park. And what this does is really help create a sense of community again. It creates these regular events that people can come out to, get to know their neighbors, interact with, and just kind of rebuild that sense of the community. And then the park itself just gives people a great sense of pride again in their neighborhood. This block by block program is really one that I'm probably most proud of. First, it's a great example of how we've come up with a better way to spend public money. So the old way is that every ward gets about the same amount of money per year to do home repair. As a result, you're able to do about 6 or 7 houses a year, and they're scattered throughout the whole ward. 6 or 7 houses is great, but we have a waiting list of about 400 people. And so you'll never really be able to get to that whole list. And in doing those houses scattered like you do, really the only person you're benefiting is that homeowner. The taxpayers aren't really getting a big bang out of that buck. So what we did was kind of revamp the whole program and come up with a concept modeled after what Rebuilding Together has done for years on an annual basis. One day a year, they get 100 houses throughout the St. Louis region, and they've worked all year with volunteers to form these teams to come in and rehab these houses. And so I went to them with this crazy idea of, could we do that on a more regular basis, maybe even monthly, in my ward, but focusing on a whole block. And the idea is that we'll be able to spend relatively little public money, but really maximize the benefit of all these volunteer efforts. And at the end of the day, you're actually bringing up a whole block, not just an individual house. And that is what is of benefit to taxpayers. And taxpayers get something out of it then, because you've taken a block that was just dilapidated and had been forgotten, and you're bringing it all up. And then you move on to the next block and the next block. So over the last 2 years, just for about $300,000 a year, we've been able to rehab almost 50 houses per year. And that's a long way from the 6 or 7. And at the end of the day, over a year period, say we do 3 or 4 of these rebuilding days a year, we've rehabbed a whole block, move on to the next block and the next block. So over a 10-year period, we might be able to do about 30 or 40 blocks in the ward. And that's going to be a huge benefit to the neighborhood, because you're rebuilding the whole neighborhood. My feeling about surveillance cameras is that it is a force multiplier, so it allows an officer to patrol a larger area. So a single officer now, with the capabilities of these new cameras, can really patrol most of the ward from our setup in the ward. We are on pace in the O'Fallon and Penrose neighborhood to reduce homicides by 80% over last year. And that doesn't just happen just from surveillance cameras, but that's one of many tools we're using. In the next 4 or 5 years, I really want to change this neighborhood around. I want people to look at O'Fallon and Penrose neighborhoods as the next emerging neighborhoods in the city, where people, especially developers and rehabbers, want to come, want to move, want to invest.